I suppose it's our collective destiny to watch our friends on the radical left lunatic fringe spend the rest of time and eternity trying to recapture the magic of the 2020 George Floyd Summer of Love, back when they could burn and loot any city they wanted and the news media would celebrate them for it and every corporation was sending them money hand over fist. I mean, times sure were good back then, weren't they? Well, better than they are today in any event, since the No Kings protests of 14 June 2025 wound up being a bit of a damp squib in the event, to put it charitably. I mean, what does No Kings even mean? Didn't these people used to be good at marketing? And what does No Kings make me think of? I don't know, a bad poker hand? That you don't like Elvis? That Jerry Lawler isn't your favorite wrestler? It is Monday, the 16th of June. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where we've nearly succeeded in making the term enchilada intifada go viral, but we still need your help, so give today and give generously. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about Democrat on Democrat violence. Now, the reaction to this double murder spree shooting thingy up in Minnesota was quite the thing to behold, wasn't it? The thing that jumped out at me was, right at first, before they had any of the relevant facts, Tampon Tim rushes straight to the nearest podium and exclaims this was a targeted political assassination. We are absolutely certain of it. Case closed. And why did he say that? Because he decided to take two or three data points, build a narrative up around them, and announce the narrative to the world. The killer left his car behind. He's got flyers for the No Kings protest in there. He's got a hit list of elected Democrats. Clearly, this is a crazed right wing MAGA Trump supporter who wants to slay Democrats. And if we had a functioning press, one of the reporters in the room might have thought to ask, Governor? Aren't you guys the ones who are always saying we should never jump to any conclusions about political motivations in any sort of violent attack? Or is that only when the attacker is a woke leftist? And I guess you have to admire a man who can make such a complete fool of himself in multiple different public venues within the space of less than 48 hours? Tampon Tim had just got back from being raked over the coals in that congressional hearing on Friday and declaring, in the finest tradition of Justice Kenji I'm not a biologist Brown Jackson, that he has no idea what a woman is. I'm still not a Nancy Mace fan, but I was a fan of the way that she toyed with Tampon Tim in that hearing, so credit where it's due, fair play, and all that. But here's the thing, Tim. May I call you Tim? You could have waited I don't know, 20 minutes before rushing to that podium. You could have taken the advice you're always giving other people and avoided the urge to jump to definitive conclusions in the absence of definitive evidence. Oh, but you saw that juicy political narrative sitting there ripe for the taking, and you saw that podium, and you saw that narrative, and you saw that podium, narrative podium, narrative podium, narrative podium, and you just couldn't help yourself, could you? You were like a junkie who just got cut loose from prison and your buddies came to pick you up in a car made out of smack. And so, your mouth watering, your pupils dilated, you lunged for that drug and gleefully injected it directly into your veins. But then, whoopsie, God damn it, it wasn't filthy right wing MAGA extremists, was it? It turns out it was Democrat on Democrat violence. Who could have guessed? And if you feel the urge here to make a joke about the assailant resembling a gay Nigerian weightlifter, you're too damn late because the host already beat you to it. And not only is the suspect a card carrying member of the Democrat Farmer Labor Party, which is what Minnesota Democrats call themselves, but he is a guy that I, Tampon Tim, appointed to serve on a state board less than 6 years ago. I can't believe you assholes let me give that press conference. What the hell were you idiots thinking? You're supposed to save me from myself when I try to do stupid shit like that. Do you remember when I sprained my vagina trying to reload that shotgun and you fools actually let the video go public? This is almost as bad as that. How am I ever supposed to become president with such a god-awful staff? And you know, it has to be said, Minnesota law enforcement didn't exactly crown itself in glory here. You've got a 57-year-old attacker who fled the scene on foot dressed like a law enforcement officer. You knew his identity, and it took you 24 hours to locate him? Are you serious right now? Is this freaking 1932? Or do they make you guys attend so many DEI seminars that there just isn't much time left over for learning how to do actual police work? Because I feel like in the year 2025, it shouldn't take 24 hours to apprehend a 57-year-old assailant who's on foot, whose identity and description are known. But here's the part about this story that is really quite troubling. The Minnesota House Speaker who was murdered, Melissa Hortman, and the state senator who was shot but not killed, a man by the name of John Hoffman, they had both voted just last week, just the other day, to pass a budget reconciliation bill that was being heavily opposed by the radical left lunatic fringe. And there were videos of each of them talking to the press after the bill was passed, and they look terrified. They look and they sound, each of them, like people who are afraid of violent reprisals. And in Melissa Hortman's case, as it turns out, she and her husband had less than 24 hours left to live. In other words, in the third decade of the 21st century, in the United States of America, we have Democrats murdering other Democrats for not being woke enough. And you know where else I've seen that kind of fear? I saw it on the faces of the jurors in the Derek Chauvin murder case, which also happened in Minnesota, obviously. Was there any evidence presented in that case that Officer Chauvin did anything to make George Floyd become dead? Of course there wasn't. George Floyd became dead because he consumed enough fentanyl to kill 2 adult male elephants and didn't tell anybody that he had done that. The testimony of the medical examiner was that if you told me this guy was found dead at home in an easy chair, I would call it a massive drug overdose and not think twice about it. But still, the jury returned a murder verdict. And why did they do that? Because they didn't want to be killed by an angry mob as they exited the courthouse. I mean, should we call things what they are, or shouldn't we? Because that is what happened. Irrespective of whether anybody wants to acknowledge it or not. Why was there no change of venue? Isn't there normally always a change of venue in such a politically charged case? Well, yes, normally there is. But Keith Ellison, the Minnesota Attorney General, he wanted a jury that was fully intimidated and afraid of being killed, because that's not a man who wanted justice. He wanted the desired result, and he got it. So is this the kind of place that Minnesota is now? Is it our own fun little Guatemala? Is it a place where murder and intimidation determine the course of political events? And are the people of Minnesota okay with that? Is Governor Tampon Tim Walz okay with that? Because it sure seems like he's okay with that, since he seems quite happy to play a supporting role in the resulting narratives. Didn't we in America used to pride ourselves on being a place where we don't have third world political bullshit like that? In his rashness, in his lack of deliberation or forbearance, in his maniacal zeal to seize upon a political narrative that he thought was momentarily convenient, the governor has painted himself into one hell of a corner here. He was correct, though not in the way that he thought, that this was a targeted act of political violence. But by all indications, according to the facts as we understand them currently, seeing all the footage we have seen, it appears to have been violence that was perpetrated upon Democrats, by Democrats, and it further appears to have been over something as stupid and trifling as a vote on a budget bill. It's unlikely that you will hear one more word about this story in the mainstream fake news media. You may have seen a flurry of social media activity on Saturday after the Tampon Tim press conference, before the disclosure of the suspect's identity and party affiliation, during which many of your favorite woke leftist bomb throwers were hard at work crafting the narrative about how this was all Donald Trump's fault. But then, after a couple hours, those tweets got quickly deleted, and the tweeters suddenly clammed right up and didn't have anything more to say. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? And it will be no different with the fake news media. They have probably already chucked this story into the bin that's labeled permanent memory hole. You'll see some local coverage of it in Minnesota, but I am telling you right now, in terms of the national media, this story is going to be disappeared quicker than you can say, get that man a pair of concrete shoes and chuck him in the fucking river. And that's a hell of a damn shame, because it ought to be a big national story, just like it was for those first few hours. Sure, Minnesota is only one state out of 50. Sure, this incident has to do solely with Minnesota state politics. But doesn't every American have a stake in the question of what kind of country we want to be? We want to be a country where elected officials get murdered for voting wrongly on budget bills? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no, we don't want to be a country like that. But if one state in the Union has become such a place, then we already are that kind of country, and we ignore it at our own peril. I'm done. That's all I've got. See you tomorrow. Get off my lawn.